And welcome back. Now, with the coronavirus pandemic having being described as a national state of disaster by President Cyril Ramaphosa, more and more companies are actually opting to ask their employees to work from home. And this, of course, in order to prevent any possibility of the virus spreading any further. And this, however, also gives opportunity and fertile ground for new cyber threats to emerge if organizations do not act proactively. Charl Ueckermann is the CEO of AVeS Security, Cyber Security, and has over 22 years in the cybersecurity industry, and he joins us now. Thanks so much for coming through, Charl.
Thank you for having me.
So, firstly, why is it crucial for companies to actually have a strategy to deal with cybersecurity at a time like this?
Well, in the past, organizations used to provision for the executives to work offline, work at airports, work across board and so on. And suddenly the game has changed. So it's almost like welcome to the new world of work. And now there's much more provision that needs to be made for people that actually work from home. And the mechanisms are there. It's a matter of expanding that now into the rest of the workforce.
So what are the biggest cyber threats right now?
I think the biggest cyber threat is people getting mails, going to websites, reading up more about the coronavirus. I mean, we know that globally, cyber criminals use these kind of big events to actually spread malware. And 92% of viruses, quite interesting how the cyber industry and the medical industry is so same. It's all about viruses and spreading and things like that. But they would use mails to tell you more about the virus. In the meantime, that mail may be coming from a cyber criminal. So coronavirus.com, for instance, is a cyber criminal website. So one must be careful what you read, what kind of mails you get, and what kind of websites you are going to, because that will be used against people.
So now that we're going to have more people working remotely, what sort of measures can companies take to actually try and protect themselves?
I think there's a few things. I mean, cloud and Office 365 and all those kind of technologies has been around for a few years now, and it is just expanding that very fast, much faster. So ensuring that when people work from home, I mean, normally they would sit at the office, they will sit behind a corporate firewall and they're probably protected because there are layers of protection in the office. Now they're not. Now they sit at home, they've got a router, which is not protected, which probably still have the default admin user passwords and so on it. Which means that data could be compromised in a way. So I think it's quite important that people make sure that they still have the same layers of protection working from home. So it's almost like bring your own home to the office. And that means creating things like what we call virtual private networks. It's a little VPN piece of software which connects you straight back into the office, which is an encrypted communication tunnel. And then it means that you go out onto the internet from the office effectively, but sitting at home. And making sure that the antivirus is updated on those devices that they use at home. Making sure that the patches are being updated. Making sure that there are backups. And obviously working from the cloud, working in the cloud. So more people working into the cloud also opens up a whole lot of potential where people can now gain access to that data from anywhere in the world. And that's where the corporate IT has got a responsibility. So they need to monitor where people are accessing those cloud databases or cloud information. So if I work in South Africa, I sit in South Africa, I sit in Johannesburg, and I access a cloud platform which sits in South Africa and Johannesburg, Cape Town or so, that's all fine. But if I access that from Germany or the US or North Korea suddenly, obviously there's a problem. And I think that's where corporate IT has a responsibility to ensure what the geolocations are of people accessing the data and what kind of behavior there is around the data. So there's a twofold responsibility, both from the corporate and from the individual.
And of course, companies trying to work on various media platforms.
Yes.
So you are perhaps asking your employees to set up a new WhatsApp group and these things get hacked all the time.
Well, not just that. People may also need a bit of technical support to say, okay, how do I set that up? Currently, you would find a lot of the technical support websites. Make sure they are really legit, because those sites will actually also be used by cyber criminals to actually let you download a piece of software to do something. It looks very legit, but it's not. So yes, it's all about the devices and the devices being protected. And I think the organization, again, having those devices being authorized. which means that if someone accesses from a specific device, whether it's a tablet, whether it's a laptop or so, that there's a bit of control over it to make sure that they can centrally see that if that laptop gets stolen right now, and someone else uses that laptop, surely then you have access to the company's information. So you need to have those prevention measures in place in terms of the passwords, in terms of the control over the devices itself. So that's quite important.
So you have these big corporates, they of course have the resources, the money to look into all of that. What about the smaller guys?
Well, that's one advantage I think we have in South Africa. If you look at all these micro enterprises, I mean, they've been functioning from home for many years. So they have a lot of antivirus in place. They've gone through the cycle where they were aware, okay, how do I uplift my security? And obviously there's also cyber insurance. I mean, for very, very cheap, you can actually outsource some of your risk and give it to some of the insurance companies to handle. So there's various ways, but I think there's a lot to learn, and the micro enterprises can maybe teach some of the work from home sort of environments in terms of how to do it.
Well, Charl, of course, so many layers to this coronavirus story, and Charl Ueckermann is the CEO of AVeS Cyber Security, talking to us about some of the cyber threats and what you can do to try and safeguard yourself against possible onslaught. And this is all we have time for this morning.